Hello. So I'm going to look at a 35 marker and go through how to structure one of these big essay questions. So in the exam, the component 1 exam, you have two sets of core questions, a 5 and a 15 marker. And then you have a 15 marker for education. And then you're given two 35 markers, but you choose whichever 35 marker you would prefer to answer. So a 35 marker is a big essay question, and you have about 43 minutes to complete it. I always suggest that students work their way back to front, so that you actually do the big essay questions first, and then work your way back to the core. But assess the view that working class underachievement is caused by factors outside of the school. Now, because it's got the word view, that's telling me that this is a debate, which means I have to go both for the question and then against it. So because it's a debate, I need to have paragraphs that say yes for the question, that's correct, and then also paragraphs against it, opposing it. So assess the view. When it's got the word view, it's telling me it is a debate. And I have to debate the view that working class underachievement, so it's working class, which tells me that is the blue grid, says the underachievement is caused by factors outside the school. So it's a debate, and this side for the question is the view that it's outside. That is outside the school, which is causing working class underachievement. That's for the questions. The paragraphs 4, 1, 2, and 3 are the view that it's outside factors that are causing the inequality. And then this side, these 3 paragraphs, 1, 2, and 3, is actually suggesting no, it's not. It's inside school. Factors. So inside school, it's causing the underachievement. So assess the view. View is telling me it's a debate, which means we go draw a little line down the middle of our page, for, against, for, against, for, against. Assess the view that the working class tells me it's a blue grid, is caused by factors outside the school. So it's asking me, is it outside that's the problem, or is it inside that's the problem? So this side, we're going to go, yes, it's outside school factors. So I've designed the grid in a way whereby I've already tried to group together sociologists that have a similar viewpoint about the cause of the inequality. Sometimes you'll have to break it up and move it around, but generally they've been pulled together to help construct the paragraphs for you. So outside, I'm going to do material deprivation, because that is without a doubt an outside school factor, which is arguably causing the underachievement of working class groups. So material deprivation is the impact of poverty or a lack of money and resources. Material deprivation is an outside school factor, and it is the impact of poverty or a lack of money or resources. So material deprivation is an outside school factor. It is the impact of poverty or a lack of resources or money. For Smith and Noble, material deprivation can be poor quality housing. Material deprivation can be poor quality housing with overcrowding. And damp can be poor quality housing with overcrowding and damp. It can be limited access to books and resources. It can be limited access to books and resources. And poor quality diet. If a noble material deprivation can be poor quality housing, limited access to books and resources, and can be poor quality diet. For Forsyth and Furlong, the most significant factor that deters the working class from university is the cost. The most significant factor deterring working class students from university is the cost. And catchment area that have more social deprivation, and catchment areas that have more social deprivation, or the area from which schools draw their pupils. The catchment areas with more social deprivation, or the areas from which schools draw their pupils. Schools in deprived areas tend to have more discipline problems. And a higher turnover of teachers. Okay. Sutton Trust. Remember I said to you on your last essay, we want to pop that in. Sutton Trust found that the most successful comprehensives have 50% less free school meals pupils and are more socially selective. They get to cherry pick their students. Sutton Trust and the most successful comprehensives have 50% less free school meals pupils and are much more socially selective. They get to be able to choose the students they want to take rather than drawing from the area. So I've got Smith and Noble. I have got Forsyth and Furlong as a second sociologist. And I've got catchment area with the Sutton Trust, which still counts as knowledge, even though it's not a name. So I've got 3. I always try and aim for 3 sociologists per paragraph, or I include the paragraphs first that have the most names. Because if you run out of time, if you try and incorporate the paragraphs with 3 pieces of knowledge first, and you can't get through the whole essay, you'll still have given the examiner range. So I always try to do the ones that are the biggest, that have the most names first. So those 3. The same as with your 15 marker, you have to then say, this shows. You have to try and specifically, we have to use analysis. You have to show the examiner that you are addressing the question. So this shows that working class underachievement is caused by factors outside school, because that you must address the specific terms of the question. It's this evidence here, catchment area, Smith and Noble, Forsyth and Furlong. It shows that working class underachievement is caused by factors outside the school. You have to then say because. If you stop there, what you're doing is you're giving the examiner what we call lip service, which is when you have shown that you've given that this shows to tell the examiner you're about to do some analysis, but you never do analysis because you don't explain it. So it has to have the because. This shows that working class underachievement is caused by factors outside of school because. It is material, it is external. Oops. It is external material factors cause working class groups, it is external material factors that cause working class groups lower rates of attendance. It is external material factors that cause working class groups to have lower rates of attendance and lower levels of concentration in class. It is external factors that cause the underachievement of working class groups, because it is material factors that cause working class groups lower rates of attendance and lower levels of concentration in class, causing them to underachieve. It is external factors, because it's those external material factors, which is why working class groups have lower rates of attendance and lower levels of concentration. And that's what causes them to underachieve, their inability to concentrate and their lower rates of attendance. So I've kept my concentration and attendance for my this shows rather than putting it for Smith and Noble. But I've directly referenced the terms of the question there and used the this shows. And then I have to give the examiner evaluation. I have to also say in each paragraph, however, which you've got in your grids as well, to help structure and formulate it. So, however, for Coltron, for John Coltron, it is families who self-regulate. It is families who self-regulate to ensure working class children attend working class schools. It's the family who self-regulate to ensure working class children attend working class schools. It is cultural comfort. However, culture, and it is families who self-regulate to ensure working class children attend working class schools, as it's culturally more comfortable for them. Okay, it's families who self-regulate to ensure working class children attend working class schools, as it's more culturally comfortable. But he still suggests it's external factors. I have to try and address the question in the evaluation as well. So he is criticizing those sociologists because what he's arguing is actually it is largely families who ensure working class children attend working class schools because it's culturally more comfortable for them to do so. But he would still argue, when we're looking at this question, who's at fault? Outside the school or inside the school? And he'd say, look, it's still outside the school. Okay, material deprivation is done. Boom, done by this shows, done by however. And then an inside school factor. So labelling is what happens inside the school. And again, I'm going to go with labelling first, just to, again, try and give you some understanding about why I'm doing that section first. It's because labelling has a number of sociologists. So it's got Becker, it's got Hargreaves, it's got Ray, it's got Ball. So I've got a number of sociologists to play with. We always want to do the bigger paragraphs first in case we've run out of time. So against the question. So, however, labelling can cause working class groups to underachieve. So I'm addressing the question at the start of the paragraphs as well. A good tip is an examiner should be able to get, at any point in one of your paragraphs and know exactly what that question is. So labelling causes working class groups to underachieve. And this takes place inside school. Saying, look, labelling is definitely a factor that adds to working class underachievement. And this actually takes place inside school. For Becker, he studied 60 teachers and found they have an ideal type. Studied 60 teachers and found that they have an ideal type. And they often interpret working class behaviour as a lack of interest. They often interpret working class behaviour as a lack of interest and motivation. So 60 teachers have found they have an ideal type. They often interpret working class behaviour as a lack of interest and motivation. Working class groups are often labelled, placed into bottom set. They're often labelled, placed into bottom set, where they internalise. They're often labelled, placed into bottom set, where they internalise or accept failure. They often internalise, accept failure, and then self-fulfill the prophecy. Teacher thought you were going to fail, so put you in bottom set, which is where you internalise, you accept that you're probably not very bright or unlikely to achieve. You accept the idea of failure, and you ultimately then will fulfill the prophecy. Labelled, placed into bottom set, you then accept and internalise the failure, you give up, and thus fulfill the prophecy. Accept failure, I'm going to put there actually as well, and give up, and then they fulfill the prophecy. Okay. For Hargreaves, teacher's judgment of ability is influenced by the houses that children come from. So if you're thinking, wow, they judge the ability. So, well, Hargreaves would say, well, teacher's judgment of ability is often influenced by the houses that children come from. And Ray, Professor Diane Ray, found that children as young as 10 internalize or accept failure. So children as young as 10 are already starting to internalize or accept this idea that they're going to fail, or they've started to internalize this idea that, you know, IQ is natural, you're either bright or not. They're starting to already internalize at 10. For Ball, we still set and stream. So setting, top, middle, and bottom setting, and stream. So if you're bottom set maths, bottom set science, you're going to probably be in bottom set English. We stream you into all those bottom sets. For Ball, we still set and stream to please middle class parents who don't want their children disrupted by weaker learners. We still set and stream in order to please middle class parents who don't want their child disrupted or pulled down by weaker learners. Okay, end of the paragraph. This shows, got to be clear that I'm doing some analysis. So this shows, so assess the view that working class underachievement is caused by outside school factors. So this shows working class underachievement is not caused, going against the question, it's not caused by factors outside school. It's not caused by factors outside school. It is caused by setting and streaming. So it's not caused by external factors. It's caused by setting and streaming, which results in working class groups internalizing and accepting failure. It results in working class groups internalizing and accepting failure, which results in their underachievement. This shows that work underachievement is not caused by factors outside the school. So that's addressing the question directly. It is caused by setting and streaming, which results in working class groups internalizing and accepting failure. And that's what results in their underachievement. It's not external factors, it's setting and streaming, because setting and streaming is why they accept their failure, and that's why they underachieve. If you'd never put them in bottom set and restricted their grades, they never would have accepted this idea that they were going to fail, and they then wouldn't have internalized and given up. It's not external factors, inside factors that results in their underachievement, because that's why they're internalizing and giving up. Okay, that's paragraph 2. Again, I've got 3 sociologists clearly saying to the examiner, with Becker, Hargreaves, and with Ball, and Ray, get Ray, I'm saying this clearly shows that it is not external factors, it's internal factors that's causing the underachievement, because they're being set and streamed and they're given up as a result of you setting and streaming them. And then, as before, I have to have evaluation. I have to have however in every paragraph as well. However, for Blackman, Afro-Caribbean girls, it's not just Blackman, it's also Mirza, but however, for Blackman, Afro-Caribbean girls work hard to resist racist labeling and streaming. However, for Blackman, Afro-Caribbean girls work hard to resist labeling and streaming. Which suggests that some external factors. So Afro-Caribbean girls work hard to resist racist labeling and streaming, which suggests that some external factors, like parental involvement, may help explain underachievement in education. So for Blackman, well, Afro-Caribbean girls are labelled and streamed due to racism, and they work hard to resist those factors. The question is, why can't your white working class boys? So what we're going to suggest there is that suggests that there's maybe some external factors like parental involvement that may help explain underachievement in education. So what we're trying to infer with Blackman is perhaps it isn't completely inside factors, because if Afro-Caribbean girls can resist, perhaps there is an external factor to the school that perhaps helps us understand achievement. Remember I said to you, one of the arguments is because our Afro-Caribbean community have a larger proportion of single mothers, so at 59%, that for people like Bryce and Sewell, that is a real asset to Black women or women of colour. Okay, so those are my 2 paragraphs. Goes paragraph 1, all of that together, those 3 sociologists, this shows, and however. Then it goes paragraph 2, which is labelling. Becker, Hargreaves, Ray, Ball, this shows, however, it's all one big paragraph. And then you have to go back again to the question. So you have to then go back to the question that, yes, it is outside school factors that cause the underachievement of working class groups. So my paragraph 3 is going to go back for the question. Parental factors is an external factor. Oh, sorry, parental involvement. Parental involvement is an external factor. That may explain working class underachievement. So again, trying to address the question at the start. Parental involvement is an external factor that may help explain working class underachievement. For Douglas, parental interest is the most important factor. Parental interest is the most important factor behind achievement. Parental interest is the most important factor behind the achievement. Try not to be offended. Working class parents are less interested in their children's education. Working class parents are less interested in their children's education. And he measured this by the number of, or the frequency. So he measured this by the frequency of visits to school, particularly parents' evening. Parental interest is the most important factor. He found that working class parents are less interested in their children's education, and he measured this by the frequency of visits to school, particularly parents' evening. For Phillips and Palmer, middle class parents are more child-centered. So child-focused activities, they're more child-centered. They encourage their children to plan ahead, to be future time orientated. They middle class are more child-centered. They encourage their children to plan ahead and can actually socially control their children. So again, try not to be offended at the suggestion that it's just middle class parents that are child-centered, that encourage their children to plan ahead and can actually socially control their children. We've got Phillips and Palmer as well. And then Saunders. For Saunders, middle class children are just more hard working, intelligent, and motivated. So for Saunders, middle class children are just more hardworking, more intelligent, and better motivated. So there's just really implying there's something inept about working class children. Yeah. So for Douglas, parental interest, Phillips and Palmer, more child-centered, who can actually control their children. And for Saunders, they're just more intelligent middle-class kids. Okay. Right. After those three, we say this shows examine on doing some analysis. This shows working class underachievement. Working class underachievement is caused by factors outside school. It is caused by factors outside school. Because parents can encourage their children. Because parents can encourage their children to complete homework. Because parents can encourage their children to complete homework and revision. So parents can encourage their children to complete homework and revision, which is likely to increase the achievement, because the achievement is also a term of the question, which is likely to increase the achievement of their children. So I don't like the inference personally, but it could be external factors, because if we consider that parents can encourage their children to complete homework and revision, and that is likely to have a result on their achievement. The children are likely to do better if they are completing all their homework. If they are doing all of their revision, they are likely to do better. So it is external factors. Underachievement is caused by external factors because parents can encourage their children to do these things. Doesn't mean the working class parents aren't doing that. So to evaluate it then. So however, got to have evaluation of your paragraph. However, working class parents are more likely to engage in shift work, so physically can't attend. Working class parents are more likely to be working shifts, so physically can't attend parents' evening. And Keddy angrily rejects this view. Suggesting that working class culture and parenting. So Keddy angrily rejects this view, arguing that working class culture and parenting is not inferior. It's just different. Angrily rejects this view. Working class parenting and culture is not inferior to middle class. It's just different. And Diane Ray, knows that underachievement is caused by the education system. She notes the underachievement is caused by the education system, as 97% of the poorest families wanted their children to go to university. She argues it is firmly inside the school row. Remember, we've obviously done her here already. She argues it's setting and streaming that's the problem. But she points out that it's underachievement is caused by the education system, as 97% of the poorest families wanted their children to go to university. Probably doesn't help that the fees are a good £9,000 a year in terms of preventing those working class children from going due to that cost and that Forsyth and Furlong argument. Okay, that is our paragraph 3. Again, it's the whole paragraph. The Douglas, Phillips and Palmer Saunders, the this shows, and the however is one paragraph. And then we go back again. So we've got outside material, inside labeling. No, it's not. Outside, it's parental involvement. And then we go back again. We go, no, change my mind again. It is inside school factors that's the problem. So, language barriers inside school can cause working class groups to underachieve. It's really important that I know I keep scrolling up and down, you do need to address the specific question. Normally what happens is if you don't keep reading the question in every paragraph, you start to veer off and answer a different question. So, I can't remember, I can remember bits of my A-levels, but I can very specifically remember sitting in my crime and deviance exam and reading the question every single time I was writing a paragraph in the this shows to ensure that I was using the exact terms of the question. It's really important you do it. So language is a barrier, which is inside So language barriers inside school can cause working class groups to underachieve. Okay, so I'm going to here do Bernstein. For Bernstein, there are elaborated and restricted language codes. There are elaborated and restricted language codes. And middle class students are given a significant advantage as teachers communicate in these speech codes. Middle class students are given a significant advantage as they speak in the same speech codes as teachers. Working class learners, however, use restricted language codes, which puts them at a significant disadvantage. So working class learners, however, use restricted language codes, which puts them at a significant disadvantage. So remember I said to you, what you may have, so I think I was that annoying child, that if they didn't understand the language codes, they'd be like, Miss, or Miss, I don't know what that means, but you very quickly pick up on the frustration of teacher and other learners if every 5 minutes you are stopping the lesson to clarify what language or terms mean. So working class are at a significant disadvantage. And what you may find is they may then be subject to symbolic violence. So kind of scoffing or tutting or eye rolling, hopefully not by the teacher, I'd hope not, but or maybe by other learners. So even if got a confident child, they may very quickly pipe down, just because you pick up on those vibes within a lesson. So that's all for Bernstein. He's the only one in that paragraph, which is why it goes lots of names and then it gets less as it goes through. So for Bernstein, this shows working class underachievement. This shows working class underachievement is not caused by external factors. It's not caused by external factors, but language barriers, because, so it's caused by external factors, because teachers, textbooks, and exam questions. So this shows working class underachievement is not caused by external factors because teachers, textbooks, and exam questions are written in speech codes that working class groups may not be able to engage with or understand. It's not external factors. The teachers, textbooks, and exam questions are written in speech codes that working class groups not may be able to engage with or understand. So the fault is lying inside the school itself rather than an external factor. You might say, well, what about exposing working class groups to certain codes? But, ultimately, I would argue that it's always the responsibility of a teacher to ensure that a child and every child or young person in the room can access the learning. So I would argue that it is your responsibility as an educator to ensure that every learner in that room can understand and access the content, because that's your job. That's your job, really. So evaluation. However, However, I'm going to veer off here a little bit. So, however, for Indian and Chinese students, so I know we've just done ethnicity, but what it highlights is, so however, for Indian and Chinese students, they are the highest performing ethnic groups, even when English is not their first language. However, Indian and Chinese students are the highest performing ethnic groups, even when English is not their first language. This suggests language cannot be the only factor. Indian and Chinese students are the highest performing ethnic groups, even when English is not their first language, which suggests language cannot be the only factor. And Laboff notes working class language is actually just as complex. So I quite like putting in the Indian and Chinese students' points about language, because again, if Bernstein is arguing it's because you're not communicating in a way that grade students can understand, or you're not ensuring they can access the exam questions and the language, but actually when you consider ethnicity, his theory kind of becomes very questionable, because if you can achieve when English isn't your first language, then actually the question would be why can't working class groups? But Laboff as well, because actually he's suggesting working class language codes are largely just as complex. So paragraph 1 is material deprivation, paragraph 2 is labelling, paragraph 3 is parental involvement, paragraph 4 is language, and then the last one left, there's only one left, it's a bit uneven, is cultural factors. Now, cultural, I feel, is a bit because it could go either way. So when I look at it, I've got Bourdieu, love Bourdieu, and he's got his cultural capital, which is an incredible concept, but it's been used by other sociologists like Gilborn and Ball to help explain ethnicity. So you've got cultural capital, you've got symbolic violence, class culture being slammed and devalued and mocked, and you've got habitus, so those expectations for your social group, which university you're going to, versus why are you going to university, where's that going to lead? So you've got Bourdieu's cultural capital, symbolic violence, and habitus. And then you've also got Gurwitz with her, it's both economic and cultural capital. That's why middle class do so well, because it's not money or culture, it's both. If you've got both money and culture, then your children are going to have that huge advantage. So you've got Gurwitz, and then also in the cultural one, you've got Sugarman, who's arguing that the problem, a better phrase, that working class culture is often very present time orientated. To think about the present time orientation now, and they often, culture is very much based around immediate gratification. So what rewards now? So I'm going to pick up on those two for Sugarman. So for Bourdieu, cultural capital largely is learnt as an external factor that benefits you inside. So that's, I'd argue, is external. Symbolic violence is inside the classroom. It's when a teacher scoffs and belittles working class language or culture. So that's an inside school. Go blue and green, now it's inside. Cultural capital is out. Symbolic violence is in. Habitus is the expectations of your social group, which come outside. Parents, friends, that's outside. Gurwitz, economic and cultural capital. economics outside, but this is a cultural question. Again, cultural capital is outside. Benefits you inside, but it's your parents' cultural capital, their knowledge of the system and norms and values. And then Sugarman, you're taught to be present time orientated, arguably, and have your gratification immediate by parents. So that is also outside. So what that means is, on balance, because there's more blue, which is outside, that means that culture is going to go as an outside school factor, causing the underachievement. So Bourdieu notes that middle class possess cultural capital. And that habitus, or the expectations of your social group, can be a huge motivating factor. For Gurwitz, the middle class parents are very privileged skill choosers because they have both economic and cultural capital. And for Sugarman, working class culture is based around being present time orientated and seeking immediate gratification, as well as very fatalistic. Very fatalistic. What will be, no point trying, I'm just not very gifted. So he's arguing that their culture is what's really causing underachievement. So I'm going to do those three there. And then in my this shows, let's take off my color coordination there. You've got those three sociologists. This shows that working class underachievement, it shows that working class underachievement is caused by factors, still outside, yeah, is caused by factors outside school. It's caused by factors outside school because habitus and being future time orientated, because habitus and being future time orientated will ensure students engage with education and see its benefits. So it is working class underachievement is caused by factors out school, because habitus and being very future time orientated will ensure that students do engage with education, see its benefits, and achieve as a result. Try and keep that achievement in there as a key term of the question. Okay, is outside habitus and being very future time orientated is going to make them work harder now, and that comes externally rather than internally inside school necessarily. However, again in every paragraph, if you miss a however in a paragraph, you move a band down, so you can't get top banding if you miss one. It says detailed evaluation and conclusions and judgments, so it has to be in every paragraph. So in the however, but symbolic violence takes place inside. And I'd argue that might be why certain groups don't engage. You repeatedly subject my culture and my language to dismissing it. I wouldn't listen to you. So, however, symbolic violence takes place inside. It takes place inside school and can cause students, can cause working class students to disengage. Symbolic violence actually takes place inside a school, and that's what can cause working class groups to disengage. Furthermore, Lynch notes that external factors, I'm trying to keep the question there, that external factors like material deprivation are more important than cultural factors. However, symbolic violence takes place inside the school and it can cause working class groups to disengage. Furthermore, Lynch notes that external factors like material deprivation are more important than cultural ones. Lynch said that material factors are more important than cultural ones, but I'm pushing there that he would say that it's external, then wouldn't he? So I'm making him address the question again in the however. So I've got paragraph 1 is material, all of them together. Paragraph 2 is labelling. Paragraph 3 is parental involvement. Paragraph 4 is language. And paragraph 5 is culture. So I'm structuring it in this way, but you would literally write that whole thing as a paragraph. Oops. And then you would have paragraph 2, that whole thing together. And then paragraph 3 and so on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. After you've done your 5 paragraphs, you then have to offer the examiner a conclusion. In your conclusion, you are trying to reach a judgment. You are trying to conclude the essay because you just went, look, it's outside. It's definitely material because of this. Oh, however. No, it's inside because of labelling and this, however. And then you said, no, it's not. It is definitely outside again. It's parents. And you said, oh, no, it's not. It's language. And then you just said culture, which is outside. Oh, no, wait, it's a little bit of inside as well. So you have to leave the examiner with a judgment, pick a side. You have to directly address the question and try and pick a side if you can and justify it. So you end it largely by just saying in conclusion. Don't say I, never say I. In conclusion, working class underachievement is caused by. Now it's ultimately your sociological opinion, provided you justify it. But in conclusion, working class underachievement is caused by internal school factors, not external. Is caused by internal school factors, not external. For me, it's inside factors. Symbolic violence, labelling, symbolic violence and labelling causes working class groups to have their achievements restricted, have their grades restricted, and it causes working class groups to have their grades restricted and internalize or accept failure. It's caused by inside school factors. Symbolic violence and labelling causes working class groups to have their grades restricted and internalize and accept failure, as well as feeling unwelcome, or as well as having their culture devalued. It's inside school, restricting the grades means they're going to accept failure and they're often having their culture devalued. However, so I believe or the evidence would suggest that that's the most compelling arguments, that those are the best arguments, which would suggest it is likely to be more internal. However, it is teachers' responsibility to ensure However, it's teachers' responsibility to ensure these barriers. It's teachers' responsibility to ensure that these barriers don't impact on working class groups' achievement. It is my job and the job of teachers to ensure that those factors do not cause working class groups to underachieve. I believe firmly that's a teacher's responsibility to ensure that labelling and devaluing culture doesn't ensure working class groups underachieve. But it is government's responsibility. To address material deprivation. But it's government's responsibility to ensure material deprivation is addressed with a living wage that ensures children and families can be future orientated. They have to address material deprivation to ensure that children and families can be future orientated, that they can attend higher education and live in so ensure that children and families can be future orientated, that they can actually attend higher education and live in houses that are actually fit for human occupancy. So I will accept that it's a teacher's responsibility to ensure that there's no symbolic violence, that labelling doesn't cause groups to restrict their grades and accept failure. So I'm suggesting that the inequality comes from inside the school largely, which is a teacher's responsibility to address. But I would suggest that external factors. So, however, it's a teacher's responsibility to ensure these barriers don't impact on working class groups' achievement, but it's government's responsibility to address material deprivation and external factors. Sorry, let's make it address the question a bit more. It's the government's responsibility to address material deprivation and external factors. And they would address that if they ensured that everyone was paid a living wage. And that would mean that both children and families can be future time orientated, that they could actually go to higher education if the tuition fees were reasonable, and that they would be living in houses that were actually fit for human occupancy. So some MPs have voted against having legislation to ensure that houses are fit for human occupancy. But internally, it's labelling symbolic violence, but externally, those impacts will have, those issues will have an impact, but it's government's responsibilities to address them. In my sociological opinion, So that's your conclusion where you've picked the side. And then those are the paragraphs. It's important in a 35 marker, there is always knowledge. This shows that addresses the question, and there is however in every single paragraph. But that's our first one, so it gives you an idea of how to use that class grid to try and address the question. If you do have any questions or any issues, do let me know, and obviously we'll get back to you.